I wasn't supposed to see the photo. It was a casual Wednesday. Room 821, Hyatt Regency, Denver. I'd just come back from the summit's closing session, still in my blazer, shoes off, phone charging beside a half-eaten salad I didn't remember ordering. Notifications buzzed, first from Natalie, neutral enough. Thought you should know. Then the image loaded. A long table, birthday banner slouched behind them. Her hand, my wife's hand, resting casually on his arm, the same man she once cried over, the one she swore she blocked, everyone smiling like they didn't see the fuse being lit in plain view, like nothing was wrong. Then came the message beneath the photo. Her sister joked about the prenup. Your wife's face went cold. That's when the air changed. If you're still listening and haven't subscribed, now's the time. It means everything to the team and helps us keep telling these stories that don't flinch. Her sister's voice was always the kind that floated over a room. Loud enough to cut glass, sharp enough to humiliate without breaking a sweat. So when she laughed and said, "Well, good thing you signed that prenup, huh?" I knew exactly how it landed, because I remember how hard Delia resisted signing it. She didn't believe in them. Prenups are for people who expect to fail, she'd snapped once, turning away from the window. It took a year into the marriage, after her boutique hit six-figure months, for her to reconsider. Once she realized I'd been paying the rent on her storefront without taking a dime back. That's when I offered a postnup, just so everything's clear. Protection for both of us. I said it calmly, even handed her the pen. She signed it in under 3 minutes. Never asked why the documents came in triplicate. Never noticed that my investment wasn't a gift. It was a structured asset. Now here she was, holding another man's arm, laughing into the camera, but not really. Her eyes told the truth, even if her smile tried to bury it. 10 minutes after the joke, my phone started buzzing. Once, twice, then again, first a text. "Hey, can we talk?" Then, "It wasn't what it looked like. I promise." And finally, "I'm sorry. It was just dinner. Just dinner. Just the man she swore was history. Just the table where she forgot I existed." I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. I let the silence grow limbs. Let her panic grow teeth. Outside the hotel window, Denver's lights glittered like nothing had happened. Like betrayal could go unnoticed if you kept the curtains closed. I opened the folder I'd packed before I even left for the summit. Inside, the post-nuptial agreement, marked, signed, witnessed, and a list of assets. Everything she thought was shared wasn't. Everything she thought was protected wasn't. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I just watched her mistake play out in delayed echoes across my screen. And the best part, she still thought this was salvageable. She hadn't even seen the real consequences yet. Not when the image was posted, not when the room laughed, but the moment her sister said prenup and her face twitched, that was the beginning of the end, and she knew it. I didn't even turn on the lamp. Just lay there in the half-dark, suit jacket still on, shoes off, one heel dangling by the ankle. The hum of the city below crept through the closed windows like static. Room service had brought up dinner an hour ago, seared salmon, truffle mashed potatoes, a glass of Syrah I didn't ask for but accepted anyway. It sat untouched. My phone lit up again. "Can we talk?" That was the third message. The second one still hovered on the screen above it. "I'm sorry, it was just dinner." Not I shouldn't have lied. Not I should have told you he was there. Not I know how this looks and I'm sorry for that too. It was just dinner. Like the universe only counted betrayal when clothes came off. As if she didn't know what a lie of omission looks like. As if a hand on the arm, a laugh that bends too easily, the shift in posture that signals you still care, don't say enough on their own. I rolled onto my side and looked at the folder. I had packed it without thinking. Same way I pack deodorant and a spare tie. It was just part of the kit now, because I'd learned to stop assuming people mean what they promise forever. This wasn't about cynicism. It was about survival. The folder clicked open. First page, post-nuptial agreement signed March 3rd, the year she hit 300K in revenue. Her boutique had just gotten press in Modern Living. I remember the headline, "Curated Chaos, a new look at urban style." She was glowing. I was the one behind the camera, taking her photo outside the building where she'd just signed a lease extension. I handed her champagne in the car and a pen the next day. "Just a formality," I'd said, "for peace of mind." She skimmed it. I watched her finger hover over the clause about asset bifurcation, real estate assigned to the LLC, not personal ownership, liquid holdings tracked separately, no commingling without joint consent. She paused on the clause about infidelity, or rather, emotional betrayal with demonstrable evidence. She laughed then. You think I'm going to fall in love with someone else? I didn't answer, just smiled. That was enough. Now I flipped past the agreement to the property log. Her boutique lease held under a commercial umbrella I managed. Our home, technically a residence rented from the LLC. The car she drove, registered through the business account I controlled, insured under a commercial fleet policy. She didn't ask about these things because she didn't want to know. And I didn't lie. I just labeled the folders in clear print and left them in plain sight. When you trust someone, you don't hide the knife. You just trust they won't pick it up and swing it at you until they do. And when they do, you don't yell. You document, you file. You flip to the last page and reread the signatures. Then you take a long, slow sip of wine and let silence do what shouting never could. Let it burn, not bright, not loud, just long. Because on the day she should have handed me flowers, she handed her ex a seat at the family table. And the one thing she never thought would matter, the piece of paper she signed laughing, that's what would decide everything. 6 months earlier, we sat across from each other at the breakfast table, sun catching her cheekbones, a slice of toast untouched on her plate. She was distracted, checking an order confirmation on her phone, beaming about a fashion influencer who'd tagged one of her blazers in a story. I think this is it, she said. We're going to scale. That's when I brought it up, softly, no pressure in my voice. Now that things are moving fast, maybe it's time we protect what we're building, on both sides. She barely looked up. Like a prenup, she said, laughing, sipping coffee. Bit late for that, huh? I smiled. Postnups exist for a reason. She waved the idea off at first, said she trusted me, but the moment I mentioned legal clarity for investors down the line, protection in case of outside funding, brand dilution, shared liabilities, she nodded. Okay, yeah, for the business. That was my cue. My attorney, Maren Shore, had already drafted the first framework 2 weeks before that breakfast. A boutique firm in D.C. specializing in high net worth asset protection, particularly in marriages where one spouse scaled post-wedding. They called it separation proofing. Not out of paranoia, just pragmatism. The post-Prenup was 10 pages. Elegant, efficient, quietly devastating. Everything we owned jointly, our condo, the Tahoe cabin, the investment account, was structured under Halden Holdings LLC. On paper, we co-managed the LLC. In practice, only one name had signatory power, mine. She skimmed past that line. The clause about emotional betrayal, labeled neutrally as a contingent asset forfeiture trigger in cases of demonstrable relational breach. Lawyer speak, sterile, unthreatening. She signed next to the margin without hesitation. Her business remained hers, technically, but the startup funds had come from my line of credit. The repayment schedule was deferred, tied to quarterly earnings. A clause buried in the appendix indexed repayment to a set of revenue benchmarks she hadn't reached yet, which meant, in legal terms, her boutique still carried outstanding liabilities to Halden Holdings. To me. She never asked how many filings we'd made, never noticed the Delaware trust registration that listed me as the primary controlling interest, never asked why the accountant I recommended sent statements directly to my private inbox. She never saw the trap because it wasn't one. It was a structure, visible, transparent, but only if you looked. She didn't. She was too busy posing with racks of linen dresses for the spring campaign, too caught up in counting likes and planning giveaways. She called herself a founder. And she was, but behind every piece of paper with her name on it was another with mine. And now, as I sat alone in a hotel room 5 states away, watching her fumble to rewrite the narrative, I realized something. She thought power was loud, dressed up, photographed. But power doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to be signed. Quietly. Completely. She laughed at the idea of protection once. Now she'd learn what it meant. She was sitting on the stairs when I came in. Same sweats I'd seen her wear 100 times, but something in the way she sat was different, like she was trying to shrink. Her knees were pulled up to her chest, one hand holding her phone, the other clutching the prenup like it might dissolve if she let go. The hallway was quiet. Not the kind of quiet we used to share after long days, not the comfortable silence of knowing someone's home. This was the kind of quiet that dares you to speak first. I closed the door behind me and set my keys down. She didn't move. I tried calling, she said. I know. I left you a message. I know. She stood. Her voice was cracked at the edges. I think I misunderstood the documents. I walked past her. The suitcase wheels hummed against the hardwood floor as I pulled it toward the bedroom. I thought we shared everything, she said, softer now. You always said we did. I turned back just as she stepped into the kitchen doorway, the prenup clutched in both hands like a confession. Her face was blotchy, no makeup, red eyes, lips pressed into something between defiance and collapse. This says I get nothing, if there's proof of emotional betrayal. I didn't say anything at first, just opened the fridge. Reached for the pitcher of water we both used to refill each other's glasses without asking. She waited. I poured slowly, deliberately, then I nodded. And photos count? She asked. I took a sip. They do now. It landed like a stone. Not with a thud, not with a crash, just a slow sinking. You could see it in the way her shoulders dropped, how her breath caught in her throat. The certainty was gone. She had thought she was still in the gray, that she could apologize, cry, spin it into something forgivable, but the gray was gone. There was only black ink, signed margins, and the timestamp on that photo. She stepped forward like she might reach for my arm, then stopped herself. Instead, she held the prenup out to me, half-folded, edges creased from the pressure of her grip. I didn't mean to cross a line. I didn't take the paper. I didn't argue. I just looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I had once built a life around. But now there was a fault line running through the center, visible, deep, final. This was never about dinner, I said. She nodded quickly, too quickly. But it didn't mean anything, she added, like that would undo it. You're not explaining this to me, I replied, setting the glass down. You're explaining it to the contract you signed. And she realized in that moment what she'd done wasn't just emotional. It was legal. It wasn't about catching feelings or hurting mine. It was about the fact that she'd let someone sit beside her in public, touch her arm, while holding a signed document in her drawer that said, "Don't do exactly that." She looked down as if the paper might rearrange itself, give her some loophole. But there weren't any. Just signatures, just language she had laughed at 6 months ago. The kitchen clock ticked loud in the stillness. She didn't cry, not then. She just stood there, silent. I walked past her, didn't slam the door, but I didn't close it gently either. The air outside was still sharp with the last threads of winter, that cold that bites your wrists and collarbone but clears your head. I walked without direction, just long, steady strides around the block, through the park, down a quiet side street where the magnolias hadn't bloomed yet. The kind of morning you spend not thinking but remembering anyway. I didn't bring my phone. When I came back, the house was silent but not empty. The front door was locked behind me, shoes missing from the mat, her coat gone from the hook. She wasn't there, but she'd left something behind. The kitchen light was on, and on the stool, perfectly centered, was a manila envelope. Thick, flattened by the weight of what wasn't being said. I didn't open it right away. I poured myself a glass of water first, washed my hands, set the cup down. Only then did I sit across from it and slide the flap open. One sheet of paper, folded once. I never meant for it to go that far, it began. I was stupid. I thought it was harmless. I didn't expect you to find out. I didn't expect it to matter that much. She'd used my full name in the greeting, something she hadn't done since the year we got married. I know you don't believe me right now. Maybe you shouldn't, but I swear on everything I never crossed a line I couldn't come back from. There was a space, then smaller handwriting like she'd gone back and added it later. Please don't make this legal. The word legal had been underlined twice. Next to the envelope was a small white bag from Barclays, the kind they wrap gifts in by hand. The ribbon was crooked. She must have tied it herself. Inside, a bottle of my cologne, my usual one, still sealed. Same scent I wore on our first date, same one she used to steal spritzes of before meetings. I'd run out a week before the trip, said I'd pick up another. Forgot she hadn't. A token, maybe, or a peace offering, but not a fix. I sat down at the kitchen table and laid the letter beside the others. Not out of anger, not for revenge, just to keep the record straight, just to preserve what people say when they're afraid, not of losing love, but of facing consequences. I placed the envelope behind the copy of the postnup, slid it into the plastic sleeve. She hadn't even touched the language in that agreement, hadn't contested the clauses, hadn't asked a lawyer to review it. Just a single page of ink and emotion, begging for mercy in the wrong jurisdiction. You don't plead with paper, you don't rewrite contracts with cologne, and you don't try to unsign what's already been filed. The kitchen was warm, quiet, too clean. I looked around. Her toothbrush was still in the holder. A sweater draped over the arm of the couch. The place hadn't been cleared, just paused, like she was waiting to see what I'd do next. But this wasn't a pause for me. This was the filing stage. And everything she left behind now lived in the folder. It was always about image for her. She curated everything, her clothes, her captions, her coffee orders. Even her apologies had aesthetic. Minimalist texts, ellipses, the occasional lowercase, I'm sorry. So when her sister posted a birthday reel, just harmless dinner clips set to acoustic jazz, Delia must have assumed it was flattering, polished, on brand. But someone else reposted it, cropped it tighter, boosted the volume slightly, and in that new clip, beneath the soft birthday lighting and laughter, the mask cracked. It started with a harmless joke. My wife's voice, light and performative. My ex makes the best lasagna. It's the only reason I let him live. Everyone laughed. Her sister cackled behind the phone. Someone clinked a glass. But then the next voice came, a little too loud in the background. Her sister again. Well, good thing you signed that prenup, huh? The laughter dimmed for half a second. And in that exact breath, the camera, still rolling, captured Delia. Her head turned slightly, eyes flicking sideways like a deer hearing a twig snap. The smile stayed a beat too long, then faded. Not dramatically, not theatrically, just gone. Her hand, which had been resting lightly on his arm, withdrew. She reached for her drink instead. Not a word, not a laugh. The video should have ended there, but it didn't. Someone on TikTok reposted it under a trending sound, when the joke stops being funny. Overlay text read, "This aged like milk." It caught fire, 20,000 views, then 60, then 200. The algorithm did its job, and then came the comments. She's way too cozy with the ex. That look she gives after the prenup line, guilty. Wait, is this the same woman from the prenup panic thread on Reddit? That one stopped me. I clicked. It was. Someone had connected the dots from an anonymous post on a relationship forum about my wife inviting her ex to dinner while I was away, to the clip of Delia twitching under the weight of her own smile. Screenshots matched timelines, details overlapped. The internet didn't need much to build a case. Within hours, someone dug up her boutique's page, then came the reviews. Not hateful, just cutting, subtle. Great taste in jackets, questionable taste in timing. One user left a photo of a lasagna plate and tagged it. Hope it was worth it. She must have seen it all. She lived online, watched the numbers, monitored clicks like oxygen. Vanity was her business, and now it was collapsing in real time. I didn't post the clip, didn't even comment, just watched. Watched as the woman who always needed the last word found herself in a thread she couldn't control, framed by a moment she didn't know had been recorded. And I realized something. She hadn't just lost me, she'd lost the narrative. The first call came at 10:14 a.m. I didn't answer. Let it ring through while I stirred my coffee, watching the light catch the steam like it had somewhere better to be. She left no message. The second call came an hour later. This time she texted too. "We need to talk. Urgently." I didn't respond, but I could guess where it started. She'd been trying to buy a new laptop, probably the latest silver edition, something sleek and overpowered for spreadsheets she barely touched. A tool she didn't need, bought more for how it looked sitting on her cafe table than what it could do. That was Delia, always branding. Except this time, the payment didn't go through, declined. She probably swiped again, then slower, embarrassed. Maybe tried another card. Still declined. She would have forced a smile at the cashier, saying something like, "That's weird, must be a fraud flag. 1 second. Then she would have called the bank. And that's when it started to unravel. The joint account, frozen. Not because I drained it, I didn't have to. The asset protection clause we'd baked into the postnup gave my LLC control of any jointly titled funds in the event of emotional breach. A trustee, neutral, appointed months ago, had already executed the clause once the documentation was filed. Her access wasn't denied. It was paused, pending review. The bank would have told her that, and she would have heard it like a slap. Because no one told her no, not really, not in the years she'd been writing momentum and Instagram likes, and "you're such a boss, babe," affirmations from clients who never read the fine print. She built her life on approvals, on nods, on being allowed. So when the banker said, "Actually, you'll need to speak with the trustee," her world shifted. But it didn't stop there. She tried her business account next, the one tied to her boutique's operating expenses, where client payments landed, where vendor invoices were set on auto pay. Card declined. She must have thought it was a glitch until she called her bookkeeper, who answered, confused but calm. "I was about to tell you, your reimbursement account's frozen. I got a flag about a trustee update, said you were removed as an authorized party on the parent account." "What parent account?" she probably snapped. "Halden Holdings LLC, the same one that funded her startup, the one I set up before she ever sold her first coat, the one she'd signed over partial equity to in exchange for capital and operational support, the same LLC that, under the postnup, automatically revoked her privileges upon breach." She fired the bookkeeper that afternoon, a reflex, lashing out, trying to stop a bleed that had already reached the bone. Then she called me, twice in a row. I let it go to voicemail. No rage, no cold words, just nothing. She was unraveling, and I didn't have to pull a single thread. All I'd done was honor the structure she signed. She was losing her cards, her cash, her comfort. And the worst part? No one was saying no. They were just following the paper, following the ink she laughed over, and watching her name quietly fall off the accounts she thought were hers. I hadn't planned to go. The invite came through her cousin, neutral ground, said it was just family, no expectations. And maybe part of me wanted to prove that I could walk into a room she used to command and feel nothing. So I went. Same house, same chipped salad bowl. Her mom still used paper napkins folded into triangles like it made the meal more formal. Her dad manned the grill, wearing the same old apron that said "Grill Sergeant" in fading block letters. And for a while, it almost felt normal. Almost. She wasn't there. At first, I thought that meant she'd learned something. How to give space, how to respect a boundary without testing the latch. But as the evening wore on, I caught her sister watching me from across the table, waiting for a moment. And when it came, she stood up like she was just stretching and nodded toward the hallway. We stepped out quietly. "She's a mess," she said, straight to the point. "Not eating, not sleeping, keeps asking if there's a way back." I didn't reply, just leaned against the wall, arms crossed loosely. I wasn't going to entertain a plea delivered secondhand. Her sister sighed. "I'm not defending her." I raised an eyebrow, waiting. "She really didn't think it mattered," she added. "She told me that, said it was just dinner, that it didn't mean anything." "That's the problem," I said. "She thought meaning was the only metric." Behind us, the kitchen door creaked open. Her mother stepped out, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders drawn in like someone carrying weight that didn't belong to her. "We told her not to play games," she said quietly. "We warned her. But she didn't listen. She didn't meet my eyes, just looked toward the yard." That's when her father spoke. Hadn't said a word to me all night. He stood by the window, beer in hand, watching the smoke from the grill drift upward like something escaping. "Hard to rebuild trust once it cracks," he muttered. "You can glue it all you want, but it never holds the same." No one answered him. We didn't need to. The silence between us wasn't cold. It was weight-bearing, not hostile, but honest. Like they weren't just watching their daughter fall from grace. They were realizing she'd climbed up on air to begin with. I didn't explain anything, didn't walk them through the legal parts, or the timeline, or how many times she tried to text. They didn't ask, which said enough. They weren't circling the wagons around her anymore. They were sitting in the aftermath. Same as me. When I stepped back into the dining room, conversation resumed, as if I hadn't left. Someone passed the potatoes. Her uncle laughed too loud at his own joke. Her niece asked if I'd help with her math homework next week. I nodded, not out of obligation, but because the only thing left worth salvaging was the space she'd abandoned. And I didn't need her permission to fill it. She was still outside somewhere, pacing her apartment, checking her phone, wondering how it all slipped so fast. But her family? They were done wondering. They had moved on from her excuses. And so had I. It came at 1:17 a.m. Just a single buzz against the nightstand. I saw her name light up the screen. No photo anymore. Just the initials. She'd disappeared from my favorites list weeks ago, not out of anger, just attrition, like pruning back a branch that never bore fruit. I didn't reach for the phone right away. Let it sit there, pulsing softly in the dark as if the words might wither on their own. Eventually, curiosity won. I shouldn't have done it, the message read. I got caught in something stupid, but I miss you. There it was, the apology. Small, crooked, late. Not a question, not a plea, just a breadcrumb dropped in the hope I might follow it back to something familiar. I set the phone back down, face down this time, not to shut her out, but because I didn't want to look into the glow and feel anything flicker back. Sleep came in patches, a few minutes here, adrift there. By dawn, I was already up, barefoot in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal I didn't want. Steam fogged the window, and the sky was that flat shade of gray that doesn't promise rain, just indifference. I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder. It had been ready for weeks. The document was simple. Statement of settlement, 3 pages, plain language, nothing extravagant. 1 copy for her, 1 for legal, for records. Asset divisions were already executed in part. Accounts frozen, titles reassigned, trustees activated. The document was more a formality than a beginning, more obituary than offer. I forwarded it at 8:03 a.m. sharp. Subject line, final documentation. I didn't write a message, didn't attach a note. She'd said what she needed to, and I'd already said everything through structure, through timing, through every silence I didn't fill with bargaining. An hour later, the read receipt landed. Seen, no reply, no typing dots, just the receipt of truth. And in that stillness, I felt no spike of vindication, no rush of closure, only the calm of clean edges. It didn't undo the memories, didn't erase the softness we once had, or the mornings where she'd hum some song under her breath while folding laundry, or the way she used to instinctively reach for my hand in crowds. All of that happened. All of it mattered, but so did the moment she invited him to the table and smiled and lied. Now, all that remained was this space, ordered, documented, final. It's strange the things that end not with a scream but with a timestamp. She'd wanted a conversation. She got a conclusion. And the only sound left was the quiet hum of a server delivering the end of us. It was one of those spring nights that made everything feel lighter, the kind where lanterns swayed gently above long tables, music played just low enough to make room for laughter, and the air carried the scent of rosemary and warm bread. My colleague Elise had just gotten engaged to a teacher named Daniel. They'd asked me to help with some of the legal logistics, not as a favor, but because they'd seen the fallout of not doing it right. I didn't talk much about what happened with Delia, never gossiped, never ranted, but stories have a way of circulating even when you don't speak, especially when you don't. Someone handed me a drink, and I found myself sitting beside my goddaughter Harper, who was showing me how to twist paper napkins into roses. At some point, Elise's cousin took a photo. Candid, bright. I was mid-laugh, head tilted back slightly, arm around Harper's shoulders, her face scrunched in concentration. Just one frozen moment in a night that felt effortless. I forgot about it. Until months later, I dropped by Elise and Daniel's place to return a contract draft. Their place was cozy, still half decorated, postcards pinned to the fridge, a bowl of lemons on the counter just for color. The photo was framed on a side table near the bookshelf. Simple black frame, clean mat. There I was, laughing, light, present. I might have stood there longer if I hadn't heard the screen door creak. She was there. Delia, I didn't expect to see her. Didn't even know she was still in touch with Elisa's side of the family. But there she was. Same coat I remembered, same quiet grace that once drew me in like gravity. She froze mid-step when she saw the photo. Her voice, when it came, was soft. That's him. Elise nodded from the kitchen. Yeah, he helped us write our prenup. Smartest move we made. Just like that. Not dramatic, not pointed, just fact. Delia didn't say anything. She stared at the image a little longer, eyes scanning it like it might shift under scrutiny, but it didn't. It stayed still. And so did I. She didn't look at me directly, didn't ask how I'd been, didn't try to explain. She just walked past, slow and deliberate, and stepped outside. No scene, no begging, just the silence of someone who finally saw the full picture and knew she wasn't in it anymore. I stayed a little longer, helped Elise fix a crooked frame on the wall, said goodbye to Daniel, who clapped my shoulder and thanked me again for keeping us smart. On the drive home, I didn't play music, just rolled down the windows and let the wind carry something old away. Sometimes the loudest lessons are the ones never spoken. She taught others what not to do. And I became the footnote to a better chapter, not by force, just by standing still and letting the truth frame itself.